Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 386th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Queen Zubaydah entered the garden one day, and coming to the swimming bath, gazed upon its goodliness, and the sheen of the water, and the overshadowing of the trees pleased her. Now it was a day of exceeding heat, so she doffed her clothes and entered the tank, which was not deep enough to cover the whole person, fell to pour the water over herself from a ewer of silver. It also happened that the Caliph heard she was in the pool, so he left his palace and came down to spy upon her through a screen of foliage. He stood behind the tree and espied her mother nude, showing everything that is kept hidden. Presently she became aware of him, and turning saw him behind the trees, and was ashamed that he should see her naked. So she laid her hands on her parts, but the mount of Venus escaped from between them by reason of its greatness and plumpness. And the Caliph at once turned and went away, wondering and reciting this couplet. I looked on her with loving eyne, and grew anew my old repine. But he knew not what to say next, so he sent for Abu Nowas and said to him, Make me a piece of verse commencing with this line. I hear and obey, replied the poet, and in an eye-twinkling extemporized these couplets. I looked on her with longing eyne, and grew anew my old repine, for the gazelle who captured me were the 2 lotus trees incline. There was the water poured on it, from ewer of the silvern mine, and seen me she had hidden it, but 'twas too plump for fingers fine. Would heaven that I were on it an hour or 2 better lean. Thereupon the commander of the faithful smiled, and made him a handsome present, and went away rejoicing. And I have another story of Harun Al-Rashid and the 3 poets. The prince of the true believers, Caliph Harun Al-Rashid, was exceeding restless one night. So he rose and walked about his palace till he happened on a handmaid overcome with wine. Now he was prodigiously enamored of this damsel, so he played with her and pulled her to him, whereupon her zone fell down and her petticoat trousers were loosed, and he besought her of amorous favor. But she said to him, O commander of the faithful, wait till tomorrow night, for I am unprepared for thee, knowing not of thy coming. So he left her and went away. But when the morrow showed its light and the sun shone bright, he sent a page to her, saying, The commander of the faithful is about to visit thine apartment. But she replied, Day doth away with the promise of night. So he said to his courtiers, Make me somewhat of verse, introducing these words. The promise of night is effaced by day. Answered they, We hear and obey. And Al-Rashid came forward and recited the following couplets. By Allah, couldst thou but feel my pain, thy rest had turned and had fled away, hath left me in sorrow and love distraught, unseen and unseeing that fairest May, she promised me grace, then jilted and said, The promise of night is effaced by day. Then Abu Musab came forward and recited these couplets. When wilt thou be wise and love heat allay, that from food and sleeping so leads astray? Suffices thee not ever weeping eye and vitals on fire when thy name they say? He must smile and laugh and in pride must cry, The promise of night is effaced by day. Last came Abu Nowas and recited the following couplets. As love waxed longer, less met me tway, and fell out but ended the useless fray. One night in the palace I found her foe, yet of modesty still there was some display. The veil from her shoulders had slipped and showed her loosened trousers, love's seat and stay, and rattled the breezes her huge hind cheeks, and the branch where 2 little pomegranates lay. Quoth I, Give me tryst, whereto she, tomorrow the fain shall wear best array. Next day I asked her, Thy word, said she, the promise of night is effaced by day. The Caliph bade give a myriad of money each to Al-Rashid and Abu Musab, but bade strike off the head of Abu Nowas, saying, Thou wast with us yesterday night in the palace. Said he, By Allah I slept not but in my own house. I was directed to what I said by thine own words as to the subject of the verse, and indeed, quoth Almighty Allah, and he is the truest of all speakers, As for the poets, devils pursue them. Dost thou not see that they rove as bereft of their senses through every valley, and that they say that which they do not? So the Caliph forgave him, and gave him 2 myriads of money. And another tale is that of Musa bin al-Zubair and Aisha, daughter of Talha. It is said of Musa bin al-Zubair that he met in al-Madinah Izzah, who was one of the shrewdest of women, and said to her, I have a mind to marry Aisha, daughter of Talha, and I should like thee to go herwards and spy out for me how she is made. So she went away and returned to Mushab, said, I have seen her, and her face is fairer than health. She hath large and well-opened eyes, and under them a nose straight and smooth as a cane, oval cheeks, and a mouth like a cleft pomegranate, a neck as a silver ewer, and below is a bosom with 2 breasts like twin pomegranates, and further down a slim waist and a slender stomach, and a navel therein as it were a casket of ivory, and back parts like a hammock of sand, and plumpy rounded thighs, and calves like columns of alabaster. But I saw her feet to be large, and thou wilt fall short with her in time of need. Upon this report he married her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 387th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Izzah this wise reported of Aisha bint Talha, Musab married her and went into her. And presently Izzah invited Aisha and the women of the tribe Quraysh to her house, when Aisha sang these couplets with Musab standing by. And the lips of girls that are perfume sweet, so nice to kiss, with smiles they greet. Yet ne'en tasted I them but in thought of them, and by thought the ruler of rules worldly seat. The night of Musab going in unto her, he departed not from her till about 7 bouts. And on the morrow a freed woman of his met him, and said to her, May I be thy sacrifice? Thou art perfect even in this. And a certain woman said, I was with Aisha when her husband came into her, and she lusted for him. So he fell upon her, and she snarked and snorted, and made use of all manner of wondrous movements and marvelous new inventions, and I the while within hearing. So when he came out from her, I said to her, How canst thou do this with thy rank and nobility and condition, and I in thy house? Quoth she, Verily, a woman should bring her husband all of which she is mistress by way of excitement, and rare buckings and wrigglings and motations. What dislike thou of this? And I answered, I would have this by nights. Rejoined she, This is by day, and by night I do more than this. For when he seeth me, desire stirreth him up, and he falleth in heat. So he putteth it out to me, and I obey him. And it is as thou seest. And there also hath reached me an account of Abu al-Aswad and his slave girl. Abu al-Aswad bought a native-born slave girl who was blind of an eye, and she pleased him. But his people decried her to him, whereat he wondered, and turning the palms of his hands upwards, recited these 2 couplets. They find me fault with her, where I default ne'er find, save haply that a speck in either eye may show. But if her eyes have fault, a fault of her form hath none, slim built above the waist, and heavily made below. And this is also told of Harun Al-Rashid and the 2 slave girls. The Caliph Harun Al-Rashid lay one night between 2 slave girls, one from Al-Madinah and the other one from Kufa, and the Kufite rubbed his hands, while the Madinite rubbed his feet, and made his concern stand up. Quoth the Kufite, I see thou wouldst keep the whole of the stock in trade to thyself. Give me my share of it. And the other answered, I have been told by Malik, on the authority of Hisham ibn Urwa, who of it his grandfather, that the prophet said, Whoso quickeneth the dead belongeth to him, and it is his. But the Kufite took her unawares, and pushing her away, seized it all in her own hand, and said, Al-Amish telleth us on the authority of Kishmash, who had been of Abdullah bin Mas'ud, that the prophet declared, Game belongeth to him who taketh it, not to him who raiseth it. And this is also related of the Caliph Harun Al-Rashid and the 3 slave girls. The Caliph Harun Al-Rashid once slept with 3 slave girls, a Meccan, a Medinite, an Iraqite. The Medina girl put her hand to his yard and handled it, whereupon it rose, and the Meccan sprang up and drew it to himself. Quoth the other, "What is this unjust aggression?" A tradition was related to me by Malik, after Al-Zuri, after Abadah ibn Salim, after Sa'id bin Sa'id, that the apostle of Allah, whom Allah bless and keep, said, "Whoso quickeneth a dead land, it is his." And the Meccan answered, "It is related to us by Sufyan, from Abu Zanad, from Al-Ara, but from also Abu Huraha, that the apostle of Allah said, The quarry is his who catcheth it, not his who starteth it. But the Iraq girl pushed them both away, and taking it to herself said, This is mine, till your contention be decided." And they tell a tale of the miller and his wife. There was a miller who had an ass to turn his mill, and he was married to a wicked wife, whom he loved, while she hated him because she was sweet upon a neighbor who misliked her, and held aloof from her one night. The miller saw in his sleep one who said to him, "Dig in such a spot of the asses round in the mill, and thou shalt find a hoard." When he awoke, he told his wife the vision, and bade her keep the secret, but she told her neighbor. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for the day, till it be morrow.